In this video, we are going to be creating a fully functional conveyor belt system in Unity 6 from scratch. We will be using Unity Splines Package for this, which means we'll be able to customize the shape of the belt or the mesh to our convenience. We'll also look at how to create the mesh with dynamic legs along the spline. We'll also look into how to animate the textures on the belt and how to move objects along the belt using Unity's physics engine. To achieve all of this, we will be using my free SplineMesh package. To create the conveyors, we first need to install the SplineMesh package that I've made. Head over to the first link in the description and we need to install this package. In order to install this package, we first need to install Git. So go ahead and download that. And the installation is pretty straightforward. And you just hit next, and you just keep on pressing next. You don't need to worry about anything. Once Git is installed, you can hit finish. Then we head over to the GitHub page, click on code, choose HTTPS, and then copy this link. Then we go back to Unity, go to Window, Package Manager, and we click on this plus button here and install package from Git URL. We paste the link and hit install, and you can see Spline Mesh is being installed. This is great because now you have the Spline Mesh package always in your package manager. You can update the package by clicking on update if there are updates. There are also links to the documentation, which will take you to a Google Sheet where you can read more about this package and how this works. All right, now that we have Spline Mesh installed, we can go to the samples and I'm going to import the conveyor belt sample. If you don't have Blender installed, you'll get these errors called Blender is not installed. And I highly recommend that you have Blender installed. So you can go to blender.org and then download to download Blender. If you don't want to install Blender, you can go to Mesh, Blend, and then delete these blend files and then use FBX files instead on this sample. I am installing Blender. Make sure to reopen Unity Editor. Now you can hit re-import and it will come again. Because I'm using a URP project, go to Materials and select both of them. Go to Edit, Rendering, Materials, Convert Selected Built-in to URP, and this is going to convert it. So to create the conveyor belt, we first need to create a spline. And SplineMesh Package has a dependency of splines, which means Unity splines will automatically be installed along with this method of installation. If you are using installation method 2, which is present in the documentation, you need to install Splines Package manually. Alright, now to create a spline, we can right click, Spline, and I recommend choosing Draw Splines tool. And we can simply create a spline. Let's press enter to confirm. Now we need to extrude a mesh along the spline. And to do that, we either add the spline mesh or spline mesh resolution. Spline mesh is more optimized. Spline mesh resolution will give you even results. If your conveyor mesh is simple, I recommend choosing spline mesh. If it has a complex mesh, then I recommend starting with spline mesh resolution. Try both. Spline mesh is a lot more optimized. In this example, I'm going to choose spline mesh resolution, and it automatically adds a mesh filter and a mesh renderer. And here we have the spline mesh resolution script. First of all, we need to assign a segment mesh, which is going to be the mesh of the conveyor. I'm just going to use the one in the samples, and I'll be using the blend file here. And I'm going to drag this one. You can give it a mesh name. I'm going to call this Conveyor 1. Now, when you're modeling the mesh, you need to make sure that the mesh origin is at the center and the mesh goes outwards from the center, meaning the origin should not be in the center of mass. Instead, it should be at the center and the mesh should go outwards, either on the positive x-axis or the positive y-axis. Okay. Also, you need to subdivide the mesh so that it bends properly. Okay. You can get rid of faces below if it is not visible, but I'm just going to keep it. So make sure that the origin is the center, the mesh goes outwards, and you have subdivided the mesh. Now we need to choose a forward axis. This is going to be the same axis along which we have created the mesh. It is going to be the positive x-axis. And because we're using spline mesh resolution, we need to specify a mesh resolution settings. So we need to go to this list here. We need to add The reason why this is a list is because you can have multiple splines and each spline could have a different resolution for this mesh. So I can give it 5 or something and hit generate mesh, and it will show an error because the UV resolutions array also needs to match the mesh resolutions array. So we can add a UV resolution here. I'm just going to give it 5 again and hit generate mesh. And there we go. And the mesh is generated, but we need to assign materials to it. So I'm going to choose material here and then this material there. Now we can go to UV resolutions. So I'm going to set this to 45 and hit generate, and there we go. Now we have the top of the conveyor. We need to add legs. In order to add legs, we use the spline instantiate component, and we are going to instantiate our legs as a separate thing. I have created a prefab of the conveyor legs here that I can spawn along this spline. Now we're going to add an item to instantiate, and we'll drag the conveyor legs. We need a rotation offset. I believe X is 90. We need a position offset, and I believe Y should be something like this. And maybe X is 0.3. There we go. We have legs. You can have instantiation based on instance count. You can have exactly, let's say, 10 legs, and there we go. We'll have 10 legs. I personally recommend choosing linear distance and then playing around with this value. There we go. We have legs to our conveyor. And if you want to offset this, we offset the Z position a little bit like this. Now, sometimes you have things like these, which is going to be very weird. And you can either play around with these settings to get it matched, or you can hit bake instances. And this is going to bake each leg as separate game objects, and you can manually go and then fine tune this position. There we go. Really cool. Now that we have actual legs, let's add a collider to the spline container. How do you do that? There are two ways to do it. The way I recommend is to add my spline box collider generator script, and this automatically adds a box collision based on a resolution along the spline. And this is a mesh collider, so this is going to be a little bit expensive, but you will get accurate results. You can scroll down and then increase the resolution to match the shape of the conveyor. You also have spline cylinder collider generators as well for pipes and stuff. Now we can just adjust the width and the height and then play around with it till we are satisfied. There we go. This is a quick and easy way. And the best part is we can go to the spline and then go to spline edit mode. We can play around with the spline. We can regenerate mesh, and then we can just update these values. The collider will also get updated based on the position of the spline, which is nice. Let me undo that. All right. But the more optimized way to use collision is by using compound colliders. This is less accurate, but it is also less expensive, but it is more work. So in the samples, I have created a compound collider like this one. So what this essentially is it contains a bunch of collider game objects. Each contains a box collider, and this is a lot more work. You also need to add a rigid body component to the parent game object so that it becomes a compound collider. So if I play the game, you can see that this works as expected. If you change the spline, you need to manually go to the colliders and then adjust them, which is way more work, which is why I recommend convenience. If I add a 3D cube and then add a rigid body component to it, you can see that the cube now rests on top of this collider. Now you can make proper adjustments. There are a few more steps. We need to animate the texture, and in order to do that, I have a handy script called animate texture offset, and this allows us to specify a material index, and then we can offset the UVs of this generated spline mesh. In this example, I have metal black, which contains the arrows in the material. So I can select the spline, make sure that the material index is 1, which is going to be second index. I can give it a speed of 5 and maybe the offset direction of -1, I believe. Now if I hit play, the texture is being updated. I can reduce the speed to something like this. There you go. And now we have an animated texture on the conveyor. And this looks good. And the final step is to actually make objects move on top of the conveyor. And I have created a script for that as well. You can add conveyor belt mover. Now you need to specify a spline container, which is going to be the spline container here. There we go. And I think we can just hit play. And now you can see the object properly moving along the conveyor. Now take a look at this. Preserve momentum is checked on. And what this does is it will throw the cube out based on the velocity. All right. And that's how it works. So you can turn this off and it will just stop there. You can reverse the direction. Also, there is an option to snap rotation. This is going to make sure that the cube always faces the direction or the rotation of the spline, like that. Also, the conveyor only moves objects that falls from above. It doesn't take into consideration objects that fall from either sides or from below it. It only considers collisions from up above. And there you go. You have a working conveyor belt system, and it's very easy to set up, and it is free. Hopefully this video makes sense to you guys. You can always check out the samples in this package to know how it works. You can obviously add multiple things, and there we go. Ooh. Okay, I hope this video was useful. If you're having any problems or doubts, you can join the Discord server and directly chat with me. And I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any ideas for updates for this package. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.